Hello everyone and welcome. This is Mary Magnuson and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on growing and keeping tech talent. This is one in a series of monthly webinars Blandin Foundation offers for our Blandin broadband communities and open to anyone with an interest in using technology to improve community. Before we begin, I'll point to the chat box on the lower left corner of your screen. To interact with us at any time during today's webinar, you can simply type your question or comment in the chat box. And now let's get started. Again, my name is Mary Magnuson. I work here at Blandin Foundation and I administer the Blandin Community Broadband Program. Joining me today is Bill Coleman of Community Technology Advisors, who I'm sure many of you know. Bill has been Blandin Foundation's primary broadband program consultant for a number of years. Bill will introduce today's speakers, who are Michael Olson of the Rural Information Technology Alliance, commonly known as RITA, and Becky Stiekmeyer, MHTA's Xperience Program Director. And joining Becky today, there are several employees and interns from the Xperience program. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everyone. Blandin Foundation, and it's working on broadband in communities, utilizes the intelligent community approach to help communities think not only about getting better broadband, but about making better use of that broadband infrastructure that's present in a community. One of the key elements of the intelligent community framework is the idea of having a solid knowledge workforce in a community. That workforce using a broadband infrastructure can drive a community's path forward on innovation and attracting additional people and investment into a community. Today we've got two great Minnesota resources that I encourage you to think about accessing in your own communities or emulating in your own institutions. First off is Michael Olson, and he's a project manager for Project RITA. Michael offices in St. Cloud, but has offices with his staff in Wilmer, Brainerd, and Pine City. And so without further ado, Michael, tell us about Project RITA.
All right. Thank you, Bill, and I appreciate the invitation to participate in this webinar. We're very excited to talk about the Rural Information Technology Alliance. We are now entering our last 6 months of programmatic implementation, and we've accomplished a great deal. RITA is made up of 4 community colleges, 3 in Minnesota. The lead institution is Pine Technical Community College, and as I think many of you probably know, Pine City is located in between the Twin Cities and Duluth. It's about halfway there. It's a very small community college of about 750 students. Central Lakes College is in the Brainerd Lakes area and has an enrollment of around 3,500. Ridgewater College is split between Wilmer and Hutchinson and has a population of about 3,500. Hutchinson, as I think most of you probably know, is an ex-suburban school which is drawing a great deal from the Twin Cities. Wilmer is in the western part of the state, about an hour away from Hutchinson, and draws more in the south, the west central part of the state in terms of agriculture and some other of the industries that come out there. NCTC is the biggest of our partners. It is a large community college that spans from its home in Gainesville to about 45 miles from Dallas. It covers, I think it has a student population of about 15,000, and so they are the largest of the institutions. Many people ask about how did we come together, and we were able to build upon a synergy of organizations from a different area. What we have found is that it's been very eye-opening for all of us to be working with institutions that are outside of our region, and we have learned a great deal from NCTC, and I believe they have learned a great deal from us. So talk a little bit about our grant program before we get into what we've been doing. We're a part of what is called the Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College Career Training Grant. We were round 3. There have been 4 rounds. and the program is now ending. This, to give you a little bit of background, is a grant that came out of some of the efforts in 2010 to be able to address both the Great Recession as well as issues with unemployment being down and the need for retraining of workers. And so in particular, it was focused on displaced workers, and that continues to be our focus. However, we can serve others as well. It's understood that our programs are going to be more than just for the displaced workers. We received, between the 4 colleges, an $18 million 4-year award. This started on October 1st, 2013, and we were one of 57 awardees. Now, this is a grant that is more than just the development of these work skills, but there's really a clear agenda behind the TAC grants, and that is that there was a recognition that community colleges, to develop the type of programs to support much needed educational opportunities, in whether from manufacturing to the IT, that there would needed to be a tremendous investment. And that's what this program was about, was building infrastructure and capacity for these community colleges. So to that end, these, $18 million is for these colleges a phenomenal amount of money. And this program, and for these colleges, the TAC program in general and RETA specifically, has been transformational for these colleges. It has allowed for hardware and software to be developed, the creation of certification, testing centers, and programs, development of new curriculum in areas that had been not taught before. Pardon me. Much investment in faculty development and training, real focus on student recruitment. This is an area where we've really made tremendous strides. Community colleges for many years very much were community-based and did not put that much effort into recruiting students and retaining students. They didn't have that type of staff as compared to the private colleges, or even some of the larger 4-year schools. We've been able to do that. It's very much about connecting with industry at a regional community area, and then also because we are obviously a federal grant and we have a responsibility for both reporting fair results and following and administering these funds responsibly. There's a fair amount of administrative oversight as well. Now, one of the things that drew me here, I've been director since January of 2014, was that before this, I was the first Chief Information Officer at the University of Minnesota Rochester, the newest campus for the University of Minnesota system. And there I built a new IT department. And what I saw there, even in Rochester, even in an area that was still drawing many talented people because of the Mayo Clinic, is that we had just really a heck of a time finding qualified IT professionals. For each of the searches for the 10 positions I filled, there was only one qualified candidate. If I hadn't hired that person, I would have had to restart the search. So I really know this up close and personal about the need for these IT skills, especially in our communities, in our rural communities, where you have such a demand for these skill sets, but the pool is so limited. So in putting this together, the proposal together, we identified these areas as being the ones that we needed to focus with. And what I was a bit forward-thinking about this was an emphasis on building cybersecurity programs prior to there being the demand and in the cybersecurity being in the news to the extent that it is now. So this was thinking forward as to what was going to be emerging in the demanding areas of IT and the areas that we addressed. Again, the economic development landscape of these areas is very strong. In the Brainerd Lakes area in particular, they have great connectivity, and they have many employers and many companies that are relocating there. So there's a phenomenal demand. We're seeing in the Ridgewater area, again, a significant demand. As companies are growing, they need to have the critical IT support. And again, just a little bit of data on which we based on, and I think we all probably know this, that there's just going to be increasing demand as we move forward to 2020 in terms of the number of positions in IT skills that are needed. So coming out of this, we've created the READA division, which is very much focused upon meeting the needs of our community and being as connected to our stakeholders, students, faculty, and the community as much as we can to build these into sustainable partnerships. And that's what we've spent the last 2.5 years doing. Our mission specifically is to develop these innovative programs, provide practical, relevant courses. Most of the programs we are doing are in the AAS, so that our students are coming out with a very strong skill set, and to support the students. One of the issues that we have, and what is corner to what we've been able to accomplish, is we have education and career advisors that work closely with the students from recruitment to graduation, to place them in jobs, to help them with resumes, to deal with issues that they may run about. I mean, many of our students, most of them are non-traditional, most of them are first-time college. There's a lot of issues that they have to address, and we're positioned ourselves so we can do that as successfully as possible. Now, one of the issues that we come here is that we have a number of issues that are creating an issue where it's difficult, some of the pieces that prevent us or we're up against in terms of getting our students into the programs. Clearly, there is demand. We have opportunities. We have a will to do this, but we run up against these areas of lack of awareness of our programs, misperception that these jobs require a 4-year degree. This is one of the ongoing issues that we see, is that many, especially in academia, think that these need to be 4-year degrees. And those of us in the IT field know that often the hard part is keeping these students in school, because once they've attained their skills, they move on and they get jobs. And there is a pipeline issue in terms of getting students through K through 12 with an interest and a skill set and ability to allow them to be successful in these programs. Although we're not centered on K through 12, we recognize that, and we try to build programs that can help enhance that. And again, there's sometimes a misperception that there are not jobs available in rural areas, which are not true. We're finding that there is a demand. They're maybe a little bit different than you would find in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, but clearly we're seeing our students placed. Again, we have some enrollment challenges just by the changing demographics. We have been very much aware that we need to identify programs that are of interest to women, and we have large minority and immigrant populations that are really, I think, the key to the success of these programs. These are the folks that we need to be thinking about. How can we be reaching and making these type of careers seem attainable to them? So our programmatic focus, and these are the ones that we've created at all 4 colleges, was in application development, and we have right now just all of our programs are now approved, and we have students that are now moving through these courses. Our demand is increasing. We're seeing students who are interested in these areas. Database management is an emerging area as well, with a focus on the programs being developed in Texas. We are really focusing on building secure applications, and which is going to make us a real standout for application development programs. And then we are also supporting the web development area. In networking and cybersecurity, we're really leading the way in terms of providing that kind of basic skill set that we feel employers need in the cybersecurity space. We have very strong programs that are been fortunate to have very strong faculty hires in these areas. And so we've really created some very strong curriculum in this area. And then again, we are also expanding our computer and technology support programs. Now, one of the pieces of this, and again, we face the kind of the reality that many students who are interested in T programs are going to the 4 years. They're going to St. Cloud State. They're going to the University of Minnesota. They're going to Mankato. And so it's really important that we understand how to build a strong curriculum. And so we've worked very hard to build a shared and coordinated and integrated curriculum. And so what does this mean? Well, this gives us an opportunity to build programs that are based upon faculty working together, as well as doing hybrid and online so that students can not have to be in the classroom, building courses that are contextualized. So there's a great deal that we're doing to try to reach out to our students and to support their education as we move forward. But we really are student-centric. We run by a philosophy of know every student by name story so that we can relate to them and we can provide them with as much assistance as we can. We have ambitious goals in terms of getting participants in. Because we've gotten started a little bit, I don't know if we're going to hit the completer number, but we definitely are well on our way to meet our numbers in terms of that and grow strong programs that are going to be coming out, I think, that are really adding value to our participants' lives as well as their employers' bottom lines. And so we've also seen some really good numbers in terms of, and this is just preliminary because a lot of these programs are started, but we're seeing increase in looking at web pages. We got increase in applicants. Our retention is increasing. We're seeing increase in graduations, and these are specific for these two colleges, but we're seeing this among the entire consortium. We've bought hardware to make these programs happen and move on, and that's been a significant upgrade. One of the areas where we've really been out front is we built a virtualization resource based in Wilmer at Ridgewater that allows us to teach the cloud in the cloud. Usually these were being done, set up by a faculty member in a classroom, but now we're actually giving our students experience with that. We received quite a bit of support from Lenovo and VMware, and we basically were able to acquire a small supercomputer that allows us to support these programs. And we're seeing a lot of use by our students and by our faculty. This has been a very effective resource. I've been connecting with our communities, really working at thinking about how to reach underrepresented populations. We weren't seeing a lot of folks coming to our info meetings, so we decided, well, let's go to restaurants, let's go to community centers, let's go to cultural centers and bring our programs there. And we've seen a lot of feedback on that. And that's been I think we're starting to build some good ground there. We've been working on addressing some of the issues where we have to really think about how do we reach these populations, and we've invested a fair amount of time in making those connections. And we've been aware of some of our institutional barriers as well. And so we've worked on trying to overcome and be aware of that. We've focused on faculty development. This is one of the areas that I think has been really critical, is our faculty have tremendous loads, are tremendously busy, have very little development money for improving their skills. As I talked to you today, I'm coming from Brainerd, where we have a gathering of faculty to work on how to improve the quality of their courses. These have been really important to improve the success of our programs. We've worked closely with industry, and these are just some of the partners that we have been building over the last few years. We've been working real closely on Hackfest. These have been just tremendously important. And what they do is Hackfest come and I think are the real way to understand how you identify a problem or a project that can be addressed by technology. We had one in September of last year at Ridgewater. We're going to have one next year. We had one in Brainerd, which was supported in part by the Blandin Foundation, and it was tremendously successful. 30 people on a weekend in May, and we just really was able to do a great job. So we're really connecting with the community in each of our communities and building programs that I think have a really good chance of being sustainable. As I said we were supported by the Department of Labor, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today, and let me know if you have any questions.
Michael, I have one. I know that your federal funding is short term. Is there a sustainability plan for RETA?
Yes. There's a couple of things we're doing. One, we're looking at other granting opportunities because we feel that we could use maybe a little bit more seeding, but that would be of a lower scale to maybe support our virtualization resource. What we do see here is that we have growth in enrollment in a number of our programs where we think they're going to be sustainable. We're also looking at models because one of the problems we run into is that in many cases our faculty are single points of failure. If someone leaves, no one's there to replace them. So we have developed sharing mechanisms so that Cisco networking could be taught. Students could attend them at Pine, at Ridgewater, and CLC, and be taught by an instructor who's at Ridgewater. So we are definitely working on ways that we can sustain these programs.
Okay. And then finally, what about the folks whose nearby college is not one of the RETA partners? Any advice for working through the rest of Minnesota State colleges?
Well, I think that there are a lot of I think there are more opportunities for working together than we sometimes think. And I really believe personally that for us to continue to deliver these really important programs, we're going to need to find out more ways of how to work together and offer these programs in a way that we can, through distance, through online, be able to support that. I know that, for example, Advanced IT Minnesota is doing a lot of work in this area. We have, and from our model, a lot that I think we could share and that will be available, publicly as we go on.
Very good. Michael, thank you very much for taking the time today and sharing your story. And I
appreciate it.
It certainly, we have a lot of focuses on kids coming up through standard career paths from high school to college into companies, but the focus on the retraining of workers seems to be a national issue right now, even our presidential elections, about the effects of trade and transformation of the economy.
And one of the issues that I think we've also seen is how these IT skills, I think, can be tied to national security issues in terms of cybersecurity and networking. These are all things that we need to have taken care of if we're going to be able to continue to develop as economically.
Good. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Next up is Becky Siekmeyer. Becky is my neighbor here in the Matamidi area, so we know each other from local activities. But Becky is the MHTA Xperience Internship Program Director. And Becky's an experienced team builder and project planner in both corporate and nonprofit settings. She recently received her Master's of Public Affairs degree from the University of Minnesota Humphrey School. Becky, thanks for helping to coordinate our speakers today and for the work you do with the internships.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Thanks everyone for joining us today and for inviting me. Again, my name is Becky Siekmeyer. I'm the Program Director for the Xperience Internship Program, which is a great resource for connecting small employers to STEM interns and provides a 50% cash match on wages. Today I'm going to give you a brief overview of the program and tell you how to get started. So Xperience is a statewide program that's funded by the Minnesota State Legislature. The concept for the program was initially developed in 2012 by DEED, or the Department of Employment and Economic Development, as part of a strategic science and technology economic development plan for Minnesota. Our mission is to build and retain Minnesota's up-and-coming STEM workforce and also to support small companies. Xperience connects undergraduate college students that are studying STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, to paid internships in small to mid-sized Minnesota companies, and again provides the employers with a 50% cash match of up to $2,500 on intern wages. The program is managed by DEED and administered by the Minnesota High Tech Association, which is where I work. So let's take a look at the program's benefits. First and foremost, Xperience is a free resource for employers and students that's straightforward and easy to use. For employers, there's access to a large pool of pre-screened STEM students from colleges across the state. This year we had about 1,200 applicants, so it's quite a large pool. And of course, the 50% wage match. For students, it's a one-stop shop for STEM internships across the state and a great way to find a paid internship in their field and get some hands-on experience. There are eligibility requirements for both students and companies, so let's take a look at those. Companies must be small, and we define this by the number of employees a company has worldwide. If the company is located in Greater Minnesota, they need to have 250 employees or fewer worldwide. And if they're located in the 7-county metro area, they need to have 150 employees or fewer worldwide. So it's not just the number of employees a company has in Minnesota, it's the worldwide total. Companies also need to be for-profit with a physical presence in the state, and the internships they provide need to provide hands-on STEM industry experience that, when coupled with a student's college education, is going to help them find full-time employment in their field after they graduate. As I mentioned earlier, this is a statewide program. We've had internships in more than 70 cities across the state since the program began in 2012, and we're always looking to add more. Students have eligibility requirements as well. They need to be at least 18 years old by the time they start an internship. They need to have some residency tie to Minnesota, so they can either be a Minnesota resident or they can be attending college in Minnesota. They have to be an undergraduate with a GPA of at least 2.5 or higher, and they have to be halfway through their degree program. And so we consider halfway 60 credits completed if they're working on a 4-year degree, or 24 credits completed if they're working on a 2-year degree. And they need to be legally eligible in the U.S. In order to participate in the program. We are looking for companies in the targeted industries that you see listed here. Participation-wise, we have the highest number of companies in the first 4 categories listed here: the biotech, engineering, IT, and manufacturing, but all of these industries would qualify. We will also consider internships in other industries as well if the company can provide a STEM internship with a suitable mentor for the student. We will take a look at that. So participating in Xperience is free and it's easy. Here's a quick run through of how that works. First, the employer would create an account on our website, which is scitechmn.org. Second, the company would post an internship position on the site. And at this point, students may contact the company directly about their postings, or employers can also look for students using the searchable student profiles on our site. Employers can also refer candidates to register for the program and hire them if they meet eligibility requirements. So there's some flexibility there. Next, the company decides who to interview, and they make the hiring decision. Once an offer is made, the employer lets me know who they've hired, and I reserve a matching grant for that internship once I verify that the student is registered with the program. Finally, when the internship is complete, the employer submits a simple 1-page form, a payroll summary, and timesheets to MHTA for reimbursement, and MHTA then sends a check for 50% of the intern's gross wages up to $2,500. All right, so to get started, you would go to our website. Again, that's scitechmn.org. Besides the employer application and the student application, you'll find links to videos that explain more about how the program works and other resources about having an intern. And of course, I'd be happy to tell you more about the program and answer any specific programs you have. My contact information is on the screen, so please feel free to get in touch with me regarding any questions you may have. So now getting to our panel, we have with us today, we are fortunate to have a few employers and interns from Xperience. From Architectural Resources in Hibbing, we have two interns, Nick Fetzik and Will Mackey. Nick is in the Iron Range Engineering Program, which is offered through Minnesota State Mankato on the Mesabi Range Community and Technical College campus. He is from Pengilly, and Will is majoring in math at the University of Northwestern St. Paul and plans to pursue an engineering degree at the Twin Cities campus. He's from Hibbing. Katie Hildebrand was going to be joining us, but has had something come up and she had to step away, so I'm sorry Katie's not able to be with us. But we also have from J-Key Circuits in Brookston, David Niska and Ben Carlson. David is an electrical and mechanical engineering major at the University of Minnesota Duluth. He's from Mountain Iron, and Ben is an engineer and the owner of J-Key Circuits. So thanks to all of you for being with us, and Bill, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Becky, and sorry that we lost Katie.
Yeah.
She was on the line, but apparently she's in business and things happen. So, Ben, a question for you as the owner, before something happens there at J-Key Circuits today. But what are your workforce challenges there? Maybe tell us a little bit about your company, and then what are your workforce challenges there in greater Minnesota? I know Brookston is in Carlton County, I think, and that's as rural as it gets in Minnesota. And then, what do you see as a benefit for using the internship program?
First of all, can you all hear me?
Yes, very nice.
Oh, good. Okay, so my company is small. There's just one of me actually, and we moved up from the cities last year, and I do engineering consulting and a little bit of product design, some light manufacturing. We do electronic equipment repairs and a little bit of software. So we moved up here because one of my customers said we needed a shop, and we found it was most economical to find a shop up this way versus staying in the cities. And also, I'm actually originally from this area, so it was an easy move. And now I've forgotten the rest of your question. So
in terms, obviously you're not hiring people every day, but as you think about growing your company, what do you see as the workforce challenges? Or are there challenges in Brookston that you get the technical talent you'd like?
There's a little bit of challenge when you're in the cities. My primary job is circuit board design for motor controls, and in the cities there's probably dozens of engineers that can help with that. So when I do get a larger project, there's people that I can contact that can help me out. Up here, I think the workforce, I don't think there's a lot of skills in circuit board design and motor controls. I think you'll find a lot of skills up here, but they're going to be in the mining industries and other industries. However, we have some great schools up here, and we have engineering students. Like myself, I used to go to UMD up here. There's great engineering students who are in this industry, but they may or may not be able to find work up here. And like me, 20 years ago, I left the area to find work. So there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential help in this area. It's just a matter of getting them trained and getting them ready.
Okay. So how's the intern working out? How's David doing for you?
He's doing a good job. He has been with a lot of experience, and I've thrown a lot of projects at him this summer. You know, we're a small company, so I'm not just going to throw him one little project. I've thrown all kinds of stuff at him. Do you want to talk to him about it?
Yeah, that'd be great. David, why don't you tell us about your experience there at the J-Key Circuits?
Well, I guess like Ben was saying, there's been a lot of stuff I've been able to work on. One of the bigger projects I've had was doing a circuit board design, and I'll be able to, by the end of the summer, I will have done everything start to finish. I got to start with kind of a bare bones design that I modified specifically for the circuit that I was designing, and then did a printed circuit board layout, which we have on order right now. And then when we get that in, I'll be able to build it and have a functioning circuit. It's a boost converter, but that was very interesting. That took a lot of time. And right now I'm working on a project for it's doing a little bit of automation. It has some software and a few different mechanical components that I'll be controlling with the software, and I don't know what else.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The project we're working on is actually for one of the local community colleges. So we're actually working for a school, and we're also doing some circuit design. So it's fun. Nice.
Well, David, you're lucky to be. Not many interns get to say they work with a CEO, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Will and Nick, tell us about architectural resources and the work you're doing there.
So this is Will. Hi, everyone. Right now, Nick and I have been doing a lot of electrical work and mechanical work in terms of design on the computer using AutoCAD. We do a lot of work with schools specifically and other commercial buildings in the public sector. I think about 80% of our work is in the public sector. Is that correct? Yeah. So yeah, most recently, actually today I was working on a project where doing calculations on room sizes to see how much light needs to be in them, and then placing those lights on the document to create the construction document that the contractor will use to build that. So, and Nick's going to talk a little bit about what he's been doing today.
Sure. This is Nick. Hi, everybody. Just today, in the past couple of weeks, I've started on a new project working of an expansion of a new high school tied in to, I don't know, it's a pretty large expansion local to northern Minnesota. And I'm working primarily with the plumbing and HVAC side of the design. Recently, just mapping out the schematics of the existing components, whether it's piping, ductwork, working with structural engineers, working with architects for the new design, and then in the future coming up, we'll start fitting the new components in based on the new designs. So it's every day you learn something new, and you can always ask questions, and it's a lot of networking, communication with different careers and different people, not only locally but across the country, just to make this big project come together. So it's kind of a unique opportunity to be an intern working on such a large-scale project.
Nice. So how many people work at Architectural Resources? Approximately.
I believe currently we're just under 30.
Okay.
Pretty close to 30. Yep.
That's a nice size too, where you're not going to get lost, or you kind of get to see what's going on. You guys, as engineering students, do you see a career in architecture ahead, or staying on the electrical engineering kind of side?
We both are mechanical engineering majors. I think, for us it was kind of, in a smaller company you have to fill roles that need to be filled. So in this case there was electrical work to be done, so had to learn a new thing and go at it. But yeah, I would say that I am pursuing a career in that mechanical side of the engineering, and I believe Nick is as well. So.
Right. Yeah. My degree is actually in engineering, and I'll have an emphasis mechanical. However, with that, my studies aren't singly or contained to the mechanical realm. Yeah, so you study knowledge in other fields. So at a smaller company where you have to take on those other roles, it's a pretty smooth transition.
Okay, good. David, a question for you about kind of lifestyle choices. Are you specifically seeking a career in Greater Minnesota, or is that just this just a good opportunity in your desired industry?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely searching for a career to stay in Greater Minnesota, specifically the Iron Range, if that's possible.
Okay, and I obviously working with an entrepreneur like Ben, that shows you a path that you can actually start your own company. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that, and I could see myself doing that down the road. I'd like to. I think that's farther down the road, though. I don't think that's something I'd be able to do immediately.
As you choose a place to live on the Iron Range, I see you're from Mountain Iron. Is that want to continue to live in the Quad Cities area, or what will make the decision for you about where you'd want to live in the northeastern Minnesota? The place of the community or the job?
I'd say community is going to be the bigger factor there. But
Mm-hmm.
They're both factors, though.
Can you say more about what is a difference maker for you in the communities?
What's the difference maker?
Yeah, like is it nightlife or being able to live on a lake or other people your age, or what? As you judge communities, what are you looking for?
Well, the big thing for me is family. I have a lot of family on the Iron Range in Mountain Iron and Virginia area. The other thing would be hobbies. There's a lot of everything I enjoy doing is that it's all on the Iron Range. I mean, between hunting and fishing and power sports and everything, it's just the area is perfect. So.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for that. And Will and Nick, what about you guys in terms of are you going to go where you want to live and find the job, or are you going to look for the job and go there? Nick?
Well, this is Nick. I think there's a balance there. Just as was said before, it kind of boils down to your core values, your career plans. Previously, I know on the Iron Range specifically, it was often that you once you got your degree, you'd go work for a company and say you'd work for 40 years, 30 years, and then you'd retire. And kind of now going through college and seeing the changes that are happening in the upper Midwest, not only limited to mining but paper and other resources that we have up here. There's no longer that 40-year stretch of work. Sure, you still can, but it's kind of they're going away from the long-term career choices. So you kind of have to look at, well, what's your plan for the next 10 years? What's your plan for the next 20 years? And me personally, I'm more concerned about what's best for my family over what's best as far as where I'm working or where I'm living. You can make a living anywhere, but if you enjoy your job, you're going to want to stay there for a long time. So you really have to find that balance, and being an intern is kind of neat. You can either intern at one company or maybe try a couple different companies throughout your education. You can really find exactly what that company might look like, and that'll really base my decision upon when I graduate where and what company I'd like to be at.
Okay. Will?
Does that answer your question?
It does. That's a great answer.
I mean, definitely. Yeah, just going off like kind of what he said, I think you move into that later stage of kind of after post-graduation, it definitely comes down to where do you want your I think your kids be raised. Like, it's how are you raised? It definitely kind of defines how you look at it. And so, I mean, for me, I'd love to be in a smaller town in Minnesota. I love Minnesota, but I think right now as a student, there's a lot of pressure to gain experience, and where is that experience? Where is it? Where is that job opportunity to get that? So in some ways, I feel like there's a lot of flexibility required to be willing to go, even if it's out of state, to get that experience so that you can get those jobs where you want to. I think Nick's totally right. I think you can make a living anywhere, but he's also right, too. You have to be in a place that you enjoy what you're doing. I mean, it's good to be passionate about what you work at. I mean, I think that's where the best work happens. So kind of finding that balance between where does opportunity lie, as well as what's a good place for my family in the future. So, and as of right now, Minnesota still holds a lot of opportunity, which I think is really cool. I don't know. So, yeah, does that answer it?
It does, sure.
Nice.
And Becky?
Yes?
Oh, I thought I heard you.
No, I was just saying that was a great answer. It was a nice answer to the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I work with a lot of rural communities, and attracting young people, young families is probably one of the #1 priorities for the communities. Earlier in my career, it was all about let's attract more and more business. But now with the demographics and the population kind of graying in a lot of greater Minnesota communities, trying to bring in younger people, bring in families, attract millennials, is really a big priority. Will, do you have any advice for community leaders as they seek to do that?
Well, I was talking to Nick about this earlier, and I thought one thing that's huge for a smaller town, sometimes you can be a little, I don't want to say stuck in the past, it sounds bad, but there is a very historical element to a lot of small towns, which is a great thing. I think there needs to be a sense that people at your business appreciate the community pride. They take pride themselves in what is been built by the community leaders in the town over many years. But also there's a push, and I think there really should be a push to branch out and seek relevance in modern techniques in business and community affairs, whatever it's going to be, but just in a more practical business application. I think it's an awesome thing when companies are sending people out to different cities and they can have ideas bounced off them. It's okay if they don't like the ideas, but I think to bring those back and share them with their coworkers to kind of bring that, just a relevance that when a potential candidate comes in, they say they come out of the Twin Cities, they come up to good old Hibbing, Minnesota, and they walk into an office and it has that sense of small town, just an honest business, but they've made an effort to be advanced and to be advancing in their industry. So I think relevance is just a really big thing for that.
Okay, Nick, what's your thought on that?
Well, as Will said, I think a good word to summarize that is innovation. Innovation doesn't always have to be stuck in a large town or a large city. In fact, local to here, I grew up on the Iron Range, and we have mining and paper, and some manufacturing. Those are the big pushes, industry pushes that come from northern Minnesota, and we all know that they grew from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 90s, and now that big push for growing and manufacturing isn't necessarily there like it used to be. You can only climb the peak so long before it starts to flatten out. And so it's not a surprise that we're not making large expansions right now with the economy where it is, with the steel market. But there's still other places local to us that are thriving. I mean, right now, I never saw myself looking into the consulting side of engineering. For the whole way through high school, through college even, I said I want to, become an engineer, work for a mining company. And slowly I started to see that, well, there's more to northern Minnesota than mining and paper. There's like architectural resources, there's consulting firms, there's manufacturers that are very specialized, and they're right up here in the middle of the woods where, some people really desire that, and a lot of people don't know about those smaller companies. And so it's organizations that are, whether they're state organizations, government organizations, to get the word out about these smaller companies that are doing great things in rural areas. That is what's appealing. And to me, it changed my entire perspective on my education and where I want to be, just based off of this internship, and is really an eye-opener. So
Interesting. Great. Thanks for that answer. How about you, David? Any advice for community leaders in Cloquet or elsewhere, northeast Minnesota?
I guess I would just say that bringing more diversity into the area would be a huge thing. It's kind of like these guys were saying about the Iron Range historically being very one or two dimensional with mining and paper. Whether or not that's true, there needs to be more diversity, and people need to know about that diversity.
Okay, thank you.
Short answer, but
yeah, no, that's fine. So, Blandin Foundation works very hard on trying to get broadband improvements in rural communities and rural places. David, would you ever live in a place that didn't have a good internet connection? How do you see that as a part of your quality of life?
Right now, I'd prefer not to. 50 years from now, I'd love to.
Say more about that.
I guess right now, with getting going with my career, I want to stay connected and be able to know what's out there and all that. But I guess my comment about that was just retirement-wise, I could see myself getting completely off the grid, disconnect,
Okay,
get off.
Interesting. Nick and Will, what's we're going to go buy a house someplace? Would you think having internet at the house was an important thing?
Well, I guess with the push on technology now, there comes a point, like I live in a small town, we have a post office. That's about the highlight of the town, and it's even coming to the point where you have the option to not get the morning paper anymore because you can read it online. Now, I look forward to getting up early, have the first cup of coffee, run the dogs, go to the top of the hill, grab the paper, and sit down and read. And I kind of enjoy that, but there's always that information that you're going to need and that's through being connected to the web. And I have close friends that live in very rural Minnesota, and they don't have internet, and there is a community events and upcoming events disconnect that even just between us as friends who we communicate all the time, we have that disconnect. But I don't think in upcoming years that we can get away from at least some form of technology or internet networking. I think that's always going to be around. I mean, you can always take a break. You can just shut it off, but sometimes you need it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I would say I just agree with that. It's I feel like nowadays life moves really fast, and if you don't stay up with it, especially in terms of being in a job or in industry, you fall behind pretty fast. But man, it is nice to have the ability to turn it off and walk outside into the woods, and I think that could just speak to why it's an awesome opportunity to work in rural Minnesota. But yeah, you're right. It's hard to imagine being in a place where you're completely disconnected, kind of, nowadays especially.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Ben, any comments on what the people in Carlin County can do to help your company grow, or concerns about broadband technology? I know that the county, Carlin County is right now doing a feasibility study to try and figure out how to improve broadband in Carlin County. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Brookston is in St. Louis County.
Okay, sorry about that.
So we're about 8 miles north of the border. We have broadband here. Right now we're using both phone, I guess that's DSL, and we're also using satellite. And about 50% of the time, one or the other or both aren't working. So it makes my work a little bit harder that way. But yeah, I'd like to see improvements to it, but at the same time, you know, we make such a big deal out of the internet. But the fact for me is most of my clients, most of my customers are in the cities, are in the Twin Cities. And yes, we use email and we use the phone, but if I don't go down there and see them once in a while and actually have some face-to-face, it just doesn't work as well. And there's no substitute for actually seeing people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, my job demands a lot of, you know, lots of computer time. And I do communicate with people in China and people in India and people in Europe as part of my job. So it is good to have the broadband, and I wish it was on all the time and not just half the time. Yeah.
Well, I know the people in St. Louis County are just now starting to work on a broadband initiative to try, and they're starting to hear from companies like yours about the issues. So I appreciate that feedback. Becky, as a
yep, I know it's.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, I didn't have any more.
Okay.
That's all right.
Becky, I was just going to say, any feedback from what you've heard from your interns?
Well, first I just want to say you guys did an outstanding job. It's so fun to hear your comments. I know I've met all of you. Jonah and I came up and did site visits with you, and it was a pleasure meeting you then, and an even greater pleasure hearing you now and hearing you elaborate on your perspectives about what it's like to live and work in Greater Minnesota, and I thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Becky. Thanks for your work to identify our speakers and help coordinate. I think we've set a record for number of speakers today on our webinar platform. So with that, it just seems critical to be able to attract and retain talented workers in rural areas for them to have companies grow and companies start. And like Ben says, you know, you move to an area to maybe find a lower cost alternative for a shop and so on, but you've got to be able to do the normal business functions, and that includes both technology and tech-oriented people. So it's a great message today. I know I've learned a lot. Thank you again so much, everyone, for participating. And Will and Nick, send our regards to Katie for letting you participate in this event. Mary?
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Thanks to Bill, Michael, Becky, Ben, David, and Nick, and Will for joining us on the webinar today. Our next webinar will be in October. The precise date and topic will be announced soon. We'll let you know. Thanks, everyone else, for attending today's webinar, and have a great rest of your day.